Hello and welcome to the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce Influencer Series, a spin-off of our highly successful Log In and Learn web series. My name is Richard Bettis, President and CEO of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. The Influencer Series is an intimate, thought-provoking discussion with prominent community leaders about the most crucial issues facing San Antonio. Our goal, of course, is to elevate policy discussions and keep our community informed, and it has never been more necessary than today. Today's special guest is Mark Medici, the publisher of the San Antonio Express News. Mark is a veteran media executive with a strong background in developing digital audiences. He joined Hearst, the paper's parent company, in 2018 and has served as the president of the Houston Chronicle and as chief marketing officer for Hearst newspapers. Mark became the publisher of the Express News in late February 2020 and has had quite an experience over the last several months. As you know, the Express News has been the voice of South Texas since 1865, and its print products and the mysanantonio.com reach 1.1 million adults in the San Antonio area each week. And as an FYI, the Express News has been a member of the San Antonio Chamber since 1941. And Frank Bennick, who was heading the Express News years ago, he chaired the chamber actually in 1971. So we've got a very strong a long history with the Express News. They've been partners, they've been friends, and so I am extremely and double pleased to welcome Mark and to our audience at home. So Mark, welcome.
Hey, Richard, thank you. And no pressure with the reference to Mr. Bennick. The San Antonio Express News is still his preferred daily newspaper, whether he's in New York or here in San Antonio, and I speak with him often, and he is so fond of our paper and just he loves San Antonio. It's really wonderful. It's great to meet you. Great to be with you.
Thank you. So we'll go right into the questions. All right. So you're new to the city. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell the readers at home, the watchers at home. Tell us about yourself and what do you think of San Antonio so far?
Well, let me start with what I think about San Antonio. I think it's fantastic. It's an amazing city. I have the distinction of living in Dallas, in Houston, in Austin, and now in San Antonio. I've kind of done the Texas four-step, and the sense of community in this city is very unique. All four great metroplexes inside of the really cool state of Texas. I'm really happy to be back in Texas, but there is a uniqueness to the community in San Antonio, and we are really assimilating very quickly. I really enjoy the city. It's really wonderful to be here. I never thought I would find myself in the state of Texas. Grew up on the West Coast. Grew up in Seattle. Seattle is my home. A huge Seahawk fan. Used to be a huge Sonic fan, but now that we don't have a team, I'm a giant Spurs fan.
All right.
So I've been in newspapers my entire life. My grandfather was a publisher for 44 years at the Oregonian in Portland, and so I have literally worked inside of every element of a newspaper literally since birth, and it's just kind of in my bones. I feel like it is a critical part of our community, and I love what I do.
A newspaper man to the core, huh?
Newspaper man to the core. Yeah, it's been. I've seen quite a lot of change in my time. It's been a fascinating experience. I take a lot of pride in the Express News and a lot of pride in my career. You know, my grandfather, when he was a publisher. I tell this story, and it's always fascinating. You know, he had presidents to his house for dinner. You know, when they would come and stump. Right now, Trump and Biden, they use social media. You know, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when my grandfather was a publisher, publishers entertained presidents as they would come to town for either they were seeking election or re-election, or they were just in town. And I've said to many times, some of my friends will say to me, "Why in the hell do you work at a newspaper?" And I said, because I want to be a part of a generation that doesn't put these things in their grave. I want to be part of the generation that lifts them up. And I think that, with inside of the pandemic and with inside of the all the challenges that we're witnessing across the globe in society and in the United States, I think the Express News has really shined through. I think that our reporting has just been unbelievable, not just for COVID, but for all of the social justice issues and the presidential election. And I'm really proud of our newsroom. I'm proud of the team here. We are for the first time in years really growing subscriptions and growing audiences.
Awesome.
And I think that we're seeing a real reawakening of what local media is and how important it is in a city like
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk a little bit about those changes, right? When I introduced you, I mentioned that you have a strong background in developing digital audiences. Tell me more about that and why you entered the newspaper business. I know you talked about your grandpa, but what else? What brought you in there? I know you tasted it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I give full credit to my uncle, really. My uncle, as my grandfather was the publisher of the Oregonian, my uncle was the president. And he's probably my mentor in my life. I talk to him still a lot today. Marine, just a great man of service. And when I was coming out of the University of Washington, I actually wanted to be a history teacher. And that's what I went to school for. I had participated in different jobs at the Oregonian when we lived in Portland and through summer internships, but it wasn't really something that I really wanted to do as a career path, because everyone in my family had done it and I was scared of it. I was scared of having to live in the shadow of my grandfather and live in the shadow of my uncle. And I was really trying to find my own path. And my uncle, in between my junior and senior year at the University of Washington, he convinced me to do an internship at the Oregonian. And he just said, you just have to experience this in a different way. He goes, we have you doing odd jobs here and there whenever you're in town. He goes, why don't you come in, we'll leave you alone. We'll let you really sink your teeth into it. And then it gives you a different perspective on what you want to do. And if you really want to do this. And I had an amazing experience. And
were you a reporter or what was
no, I was in the advertising department.
Oh, okay.
Back in the 90s, early 90s, the ad department's so robust that they required what they called vacation relief reps. So as someone in advertising went on vacation for a week or 10 days in the summer, they would take someone like myself and they would have someone manage that desk for that 7 to 10 day period of time. And so I did that for a 4-month stint where I would rotate between desks, all of these desks all over the newspaper. So I got a sense of, local retailers in the SMB space. I got automotive experience. I worked with big brokers in the real estate. And what it taught me and what I learned about it was just how connected that paper was to that community, and how advertisers and readers just relied so heavily on the Oregonian, just like they did it in San Antonio at the Express News, when there really was a monopoly from the newspapers, the radio stations, and the television stations pre-internet. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of changed my perspective. And I said to my fiance at the time, who's my wife now, I'm like, I got to do this.
So that grabbed you, huh? That
grabbed me. It pulled me right in. The funny thing, though, this is a funny story. So after I graduated, then I applied for a job in the advertising department. They hired me. And at that time, in the early 90s, advertising reps were making a lot of money. And I was a 24-year-old kid making a lot of money, and a lot of money at that time to me, right? Coming out of college and now having a great employment. And my grandfather, who was just a mountain of a man, an amazing influence on my life, fought in World War II, lived till he was 93. He was the publisher at the Oregonian until he was 88 years old. He worked until he was 88 years old. One day I was at my desk and it was in the morning, and my grandfather called me, and which he never did. And he said, "Come up to my office." And I on the way to his office, I was petrified, wondering if I had done something wrong. And I get into the office, and my uncle is there and the head of human resources is there. And he said, he goes, I didn't know that we hired you in the advertising department, and I can't have my grandson making this much money. He goes, it's not right. And I said, yeah, well, I'm making as much as any other ad rep, and I'm doing a really great job. He goes, I don't care about any of that. He goes, it doesn't look good at our newspaper. He goes, these jobs are too sought after. And he goes, I said, so are you going to fire me? And he goes, not exactly. He goes, when you were younger, you would throw papers and you would go door to door and write subscription orders. And he goes, so guess what? We have an opening in the circulation department, and we're gonna move you into the circulation department starting right this second.
Oh my gosh.
And I was crushed. The circulation department, not crushed because I don't love people in the circulation department, but listen, that job's hard. And you're up in the middle of the night, you're delivering newspapers in the wind and rain of Portland, Oregon. And I was like, I walked out of his office and I'm like, what in the hell has happened to me? This is why I wanted to be a history teacher. And from that moment on, for the next 18 months, I worked every single day, every night, from right around 11 o'clock at night till about 10 o'clock in the morning. My wife was like, "What have I gotten myself into? I thought I was living the life of an ad rep, and now you're out throwing newspapers in the middle of the night." But it taught me an incredible work ethic and a total appreciation for a different side of the business that, quite frankly, doesn't get enough attention and credit, and a side of the business that really makes our newspapers go. We're a 24/7 operation. We write the news, then we print the news, and then we deliver the news. And that cycle happens over a 22-hour period every single day. And there's only a 2-hour break where a newspaper is essentially kind of quiet. And from there, what ended up happening, Richard, is that as I grew within inside of the circulation department, I had experiences at the University of Washington. I was a history major with a math minor, and computer sciences were just coming up to be a more robust understanding of using mathematics. And I was asked, after spending a couple years delivering newspapers, to start thinking about audiences in a different way, using more math-based and computer sciences to understand the predictive behaviors of audiences. When you buy an airline ticket at Delta or Southwest, every airline ticket is unique to you. It's unique to the flight seat you pick. Newspapers that was archaic at that time. Newspapers, circulation departments were very rote. Circulation departments really served to be a mass volume distribution vehicle for advertisers. And it was my uncle's vision in the early 1990s, when then the internet was starting to come about. He knew that the advertising business in the print, in print was going to be a challenge. And so we needed to become more sophisticated in the way that we generated consumer revenue through subscriptions. And so my uncle really steered me down this pathway of using mathematics and computer sciences and data to make better decisions about how we circulate a newspaper, what we charge for a newspaper, and it created a pathway for myself that really launched my career. And after spending 10 years at the Oregonian, another great mentor in my life, the former publisher of the Dallas Morning News, Jim Maroney, was running a thriving paper in Dallas, also saw challenges in the print advertising business, and really wanted to explore this whole notion of digital subscriptions. So Dallas and my team at the Dallas Morning News really pioneered digital subscriptions. The Dallas Morning News was the first metropolitan newspaper in the nation to have a digital subscription. It beat the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And I owe a lot of that credit to Jim Maroney, who was the publisher, and then the current publisher of the Houston Chronicle, John McKeon, was the president at the Dallas Morning News at that time, and it had their total support to do this. And off we went. And now at the San Antonio Express News, um, uh, our digital subscriptions are now 50% of our 7-day subscriptions. They're growing. We've added 9,000 new digital subscribers since the middle of March in San Antonio, as people are clamoring more for local reporting and local information. So, I've said on a few different interviews, this is the first time in my 25 career newspaper, being in newspapers, where I can honestly say I look out and see a really bright future. And it's really rewarding for me. And it's rewarding for the team here. We have a lot of great momentum, and we're really excited about what the future holds.
That's fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about that future. I mean, 9,000 new subscribers digital, is that COVID related, you think? I mean, I'm sure that has to be some of it, but tell us about the future of the Express News and digital.
Yeah, so print is still, I want to be very clear. Print is still a huge part of our future. When people ask, well, why do you print a 7-day newspaper when maybe you don't need to? And one, because we have subscribers that love a 7-day newspaper and read it voraciously.
I'm one of them.
Good. And we're going to continue that. So regardless of what we do digitally, in audio and video and digital subscriptions, the printed newspaper is not going anywhere. We're very proud of the daily product that we put out, and that's gonna continue to persist. As we think about the digital subscription ecosystem, the margin on that business is just fantastic, because there isn't a print component to it, right? So as we think about the business going forward, as little as 10 years ago, inside of a newspaper, right around 80% of the total revenue was advertising related. At the San Antonio Express News, our balance is almost 50-50, which is a really 50% consumer through subscription revenue and 50% ad revenue.
Wow.
And we're really happy to have that balance. As any business person knows, whether you're running a small business or a large business like maybe USAA, right? Balance within inside of your business is what you really strive for. And it's something that we've worked really hard for at the Express News and with inside of Hearst, was to maintain this equitable balance between ad revenue and subscription revenue, and we're there. And it's, I think, one of the reasons why our business has stabilized. So this mix on the consumer side of print revenue through subscriptions and digital revenue through kind of high margin has allowed us a lot of great flexibility. And I'm really happy to report next year we'll be increasing the number of reporters in our newsroom by 10%. It's the first time that we've been able to reinvest in the newsroom in some time. And I'm really excited about that. Because that really, at the end of the day, is what this brand is all about, right? It's about independent, hard-hitting reporting and journalism that is consistent on a day in and day out basis. And the interesting thing about that, Richard, is our advertisers here in San Antonio are taking notice of that too. And I would say of the things that give me the greatest amount of pride since coming from San Antonio has been connecting with business leaders in San Antonio and hearing their compliments on our reporting and seeing them genuinely wanting to be a part of that. It's not just a consumer. You invest in the newsroom in San Antonio when you subscribe to the newspaper. Advertisers also invest in our newsroom when they advertise with us. We have the same marketing vehicles that any marketing agency in San Antonio has. So, one of the things that I've tried to convey to a lot of the business leaders in San Antonio is, when you market with us, when you use the Express News as an advertising vehicle, by the way, it's the largest local advertising vehicle in San Antonio, you're also making an investment back into our newsroom that allows us to take Lauren Karuba and put her into an ambulance and put her into an ICU and report on the front lines for COVID. Those are the things I think that the symmetry of our business in the way that it's evolved have really changed.
Amazing. That's interesting. So tell me, What are you doing to engage younger audiences? One of the challenges, of course, I think that all of us have, certainly the chamber being one of them, is, we have a clientele, stable, a little bit older, and we are, like everybody, trying to reach out to those younger individuals to get involved in the chamber, what we do, how we do it, why we do it. There is definitely plenty of room for them, but grabbing them is the hard part, right? There's so much noise out in the marketplace. What are you all doing to bring them in?
Yeah, it's a super challenge. And, I live the challenge in my household on a daily basis. I have two kids, and Eva, our oldest daughter, is a senior, an 18-year-old. And, you know, um, this whole disruption of social media in all of our lives, these kids are so connected that they don't feel as if they need to have uh, uh, someone like a newspaper or television station telling them what they should believe, or telling or going somewhere that is independent and not connected to them. It's a massive challenge. So we don't have that figured out, but we're trying to figure it out. So mysa.com is going to be somewhat separated from our newsroom beginning here. We're hiring a dedicated team that is going to really go after this whole millennial Gen Z audience in San Antonio. We know that as we think about the demographics of San Antonio and the city, that we fall down in penetrating that 18 to 24-year-old audience. We also fall down penetrating the large Hispanic audience inside of San Antonio. So MySA, we're trying to recreate a content strategy for MySA to really be targeted more towards, I would say, like an 18 to 34-year-old audience, and then also a more diverse audience. So some of that falls internally for us, as we have to become more diverse in our hiring practices and make sure that the way that we operate our newsroom really kind of syncs up to the demographics of who San Antonians are, right? So I'm really proud of a lot of the work that we've done internally. We just identified a great young woman to lead MySA. She's starting on Monday. I'm really excited about that. We're building a dedicated team around her. So we're going to really try to leverage MySA to penetrate some of those younger audiences. The challenge is the distribution platform. Google, Facebook, TikTok, Snap, they own those distribution platforms. The days of a young reader picking up their phone and going www.mysa.com are farther and fewer between, right? So as we think about the way that we create content for those audiences and the way that we distribute audiences across the distribution channel, we have to be smarter and be more accepting that distribution channel management has just changed. And I think that starts with making sure that the team has the right focus, that mysa.com has the right content strategy. And I feel good about our abilities to get that done next year.
Interesting. I'd never really thought about it in those terms, but once you say it, it crystallizes in my mind. And indeed, it sounds like a challenge. And how do you penetrate and get them and work with them to get your information out?
Yeah, and I would say part of that is also the way we report the news, right? I think the challenges with inside of our environment in the newspaper today is that a tenured reporter, their processes are so much different than how J school kids are being taught today, and how they report on news, but then how they distribute that news themselves, right? So a lot of our younger reporters, they are comfortable on TikTok, they are comfortable on Snap. So they're generating larger followings for them, but that doesn't mean that the more tenured reporters any less sophisticated or skilled in journalism. And I think that as we really balance the newsroom, it is how do we activate the best of both of these worlds and bring them together so that the hard-hitting journalism that we do is getting distributed really to this broad audience. And it's going to be a work in progress, because the days of TikTok and Snap, those days are just going to get bigger, not smaller. There's going to be more disruption in social. As we think about traditional media, the newspaper was disrupted by radio, which was disrupted by television, which was disrupted by cable, which was disrupted by the internet, and now it's being disrupted by social media. So if you think about the timeline of disruption, we've always had to adapt. And, we've been able to survive 170 years in this city because we've been good at adaptation. And I feel good about the team in this newsroom being able to continue to fight through that.
Excellent, excellent. So let's pivot a little bit. You mentioned COVID, having someone in the ambulance and being able to do that. So under the rubric of COVID, how much more difficult, or what is the challenges now that your reporters are facing, face masks and social distancing, and, how, and by the way, you all have done an excellent job in reporting
Thank you.
COVID and the effect, and, how difficult it's been. How are your folks handling that?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stress. I think people are exhausted. And I think that people aren't just exhausted inside of our newsrooms, they're exhausted everywhere. And I think that we're seeing that come out in real negative ways as it relates to the social injustices and the debates over the president. I don't think that we're as bad as a society as it appears that maybe we are. And I'm really disappointed by a lot of the things that I've seen specifically in the last 6 months. I think that what we're seeing is, people behave very differently in times of stress. And I think that we are stressed out. I think people are scared. They're scared about the news of a vaccine. They're scared about the news of potentially losing their job, because how long can businesses survive in a kind of half-open economy? So I just want to acknowledge that I think that our newsroom is exhausted, but I think everyone is exhausted. And I think everyone's jobs who have to go to work on a daily basis I think people are stressed. And so, I don't think that we're unique to that. Now, does our job become tougher in this environment? Yeah, and it's tougher because I want to keep our newsroom safe. And we still, though, have to get the story. And journalists, no different than someone in the Air Force at SABJ, they run to danger. They don't run away from it. And our reporters, whether it's reporting on the openings, or whether it was reporting on the hospitalizations that were happening inside of San Antonio, or the spike that we're now experiencing again, or whether it was on the front line of some of the protests, which I'm just so proud of San Antonians that we as a community were able to maintain our sense of community through those protests when compared to other cities that we compare ourselves to. It's challenging in my job, to make sure that these people feel safe. We've been able to provide them all of the proper PPE. We've been able to allow them to do their jobs. And I think that the journalism has been unbelievable. The video and photo and reporting that Tom Osborne did at the San Antonio Food Bank became, internationally viral, as tens of thousands of cars lined up. And Eric Cooper has just done. That guy's an angel. He's a saint in how many people that they have fed. And so, yeah, our job is challenging, and people are exhausted. And so I spend a lot of my time just trying to listen and trying to provide everyone the proper tools to do their job, really demand that they take time off, and find some mind space so that we can maintain this balance in their own lives, right? Because we're all better when we have balance, and our reporters are better when they're balanced. And it's really important, I think, during this period of time that even our most hardened reporters that just want to get that story, that they're taking time away and making sure that they're taking care of themselves.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's talk about the fact that in the wake of this election, the importance of fair, honest, and balanced reporting is the only antidote to fake news.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that? I mean, it's just so volatile and so crazy, and there's so much news out there, and I say news in quotes. Tell me about how are you all, delineating it and keeping it real?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have a point of view on this, and my point of view is pretty strong, so I don't mean to come off kind of preaching on this. I really bristle at the whole notion of fake news. I understand it. I understand how people define it. I'm just tired of local media being thrown into this notion of fake news. Mainstream media like Fox and CNN, Fox News and CNN, that is a completely different type of news product than what KSAT creates or what we create. And I think it's really important in this message of bias that local San Antonians make that decision for themselves and aren't force-fed a narrative by people who have an agenda. And one of the things that we've done to try to combat that, first of all, reporters and journalists, um, I'm sorry that there's not bias there. They don't come out of journalism school to root for one side or the other because news in itself is ubiquitous. News, a reporter's job is to report on the news. Sometimes that news is bad, right? Sometimes that news is amazing, and sometimes the news is great. Sometimes the news is sad, but the notion that a newsroom is seeking out one source of news over the other, to me, I just get so angry about because that's not the way a reporter is. That's not who reporters are. Editorial boards are different, right? Editorial boards opine on the news, right? And is there bias in editorial boards? Absolutely. And am I trying to combat that bias because I think that's dangerous? I am. And one of the ways that we've done that is the editorial board here in San Antonio. We were really blessed to have Josh Berdesky, Gloria Padilla, and Carrie Clack on our editorial board. There really aren't three more well-connected people in this city. Take out the word journalism, they are just. We're so happy that they're on our team because they're so incredibly connected, and the amount of requests that we receive from the community of San Antonio and the state of Texas to be on our editorial board and our editorial pages is really so refreshing to me because that is not true for every newspaper in America. And one of the ways that we're trying to combat bias is that we now live stream every single one of our editorial board meetings. So you can go to expressnews.com now and you can go to the opinion section, and we no longer allow for an editorial board meeting to be held that isn't live streamed.
Yeah, I saw that. By the way, that's very interesting and very cool that y'all are doing that.
Right. So the reason we're doing that is that one way to combat bias is through understanding how a question is structured. So sometimes in an editorial, right, an editorial is written or an op-ed is written, and people will receive an email like, "Oh my God, that was the most awful. That was terrible. It's biased. You're liberal. It's awful, awful, awful." Now I can say, well, go back and watch the video and make sure that you understand that how a question is structured or how someone else is speaking on a topic. So I think through technology, one of the things that we're really looking to do is to try to break this fake news narrative by giving our readers and advertisers greater access to the structure of a conversation. And I was really proud of the editorial board for we live streamed every single local recommendation that we had. Over 30 videos. We interviewed everyone. We gave every single candidate equal time. We gave every issue equal time. And I damn near killed Carrie, Gloria, and Josh because they were exhausted by the time the election happened. But the product was spectacular. And when we recommended a vote for Biden, I did not receive one email, not one email of you liberal idiots, which I'm not a liberal, I'm a conservative. And and it's because we introduced so much more transparency through the process by the way that we're trying to combat this fake news issue. So I'm really proud of the team here. They've done just a great job.
Excellent. Well, I've had my fair share of visits with your editorial board.
Yes, you have.
As a candidate running for office when I served on the city council, and then now as president of the chamber, pushing various issues that the chamber pushes. And so I think this whole idea of being able to record it and show it live, and then come back and see it later, refreshing and very new and innovative. And in fact, it almost blew my mind when I first heard that y'all were doing it. I thought, what? And then after I thought about it a little bit, I said, it makes a ton of sense, right? And for those exact reasons that you're talking about. So,
I mean, I give a lot of credit to the mayor and to the chief. I think that both of them have been spectacular. And one of the interviews that sticks out for me is just how strong Chief McManus was after some of the incidences between SAPD and the protesters. And he was so stand up. I just was so impressed by him. And the whole thing was live streamed. It wasn't our words. It was the chief's words. It was the mayor's words. And I think those things help us combat this narrative of fake news. And you'll see a lot more of that.
Excellent. Well, the chief, I was on the city council when we hired Bill. And, to this day, he continues to be a shining light and straightforward, honest. He is what he is, and he's doing a fantastic job. So I'm glad. I have been impressed with him. It is probably one of the hardest jobs in municipal government, dealing with a quasi-military force. But he does it, and he does it great. And so thanks for saying that. And I'm
you're welcome.
impressed with him. So people either love or hate their newspaper. And you've talked about a lot of things, right? How is that happening? Why is that? You talked about, well, you're reporting on difficult things. Sometimes you're reporting on easy things and happy things and fun things, and sometimes they're not that fun. Tell me about your thoughts on and a perspective that people should maybe be thinking about when they're thinking about a newspaper and what a newspaper does.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's almost hard to answer. Our goal is to be as neutral as we can be, and to be as kind of non-emotional about what we do as we can. And sometimes that's a real challenge because sometimes the way we report offends people, and that certainly is not the objective. But we have to report on issues that come to us as they happen. Whether that happens with how we have to report on the joint operating base, or whether it happens in the way that we have to report on something with HEB, or whether it has to do with something that we have to take the governor to task on, or the mayor to task on, or God forbid Judge Nelson to task on, because you don't want to upset that guy.
That's right.
Right. So there are challenges within inside of this, and I think one of the things that I get disappointed in is that we do in the printed newspaper every day, there's about 45 original pieces of content every single day in the newspaper. And my job is to make sure that those 45 pieces of content represent San Antonio. But yet the challenge typically only comes down to maybe a piece of content. And, so when you come into something like Balance, as I think about the paper and as I think about this community, I'm really proud of the fact that we have one of the largest newsrooms in the country. We have 110 reporters and journalists every day that are reporting on this city and what happens in this city. And, at times, is that going to irritate people? It is. But I hope that the irritation is offset by the other advancements that this paper brings to this city in terms of the way that we report on things that are unjust. And as we think about that, I'm probably different than a lot of other publishers. I embrace social media. I engage with people on Twitter. I engage with people on Facebook. I'm a kind of a product of the internet inside of this industry. So, I understand the interaction that is required from my job to the general public, and I actually enjoy those engagements. I also want to advance the conversation of what's happening in San Antonio. And we're going to really tackle that next year. We're going to come out in January with a point of view on 4 different areas of massive need inside of San Antonio that would help us be a better city. Like one of those areas of example is the digital divide, the digital divide, right? So I think one of the challenges with newspapers in general is that some papers they've backed away from having like pillars that they build upon. So as we do general assignment reporting and as we report on the news of the day, that's one branch of what we do. I also want to have a structured conversation about what will make San Antonio great as we recover from this pandemic, as we recover from the recession, because I think everyone knows, whether they want to admit it or not, these cities, they have flaws. And I want to unleash the newsroom on what some of those flaws are so we can be better as a community. And so early in January, we're going to be releasing a big going forward strategy for the Express News in these areas of childhood hunger, the digital divide, the inequities inside of education, inside of the city of San Antonio, and then how do we also engage with civic and business leaders like the Chamber on how we make San Antonio a more attractive place for commerce. The city is so connected to tourism and the military, and we have great foundational businesses here. We want more. We need more.
Yes.
It's this is an amazing place to raise a family, and so those 4 things are areas that we're really going to focus on, not only next year, but in the out years. And we're going to be doing a lot of outreach to the Chamber, to our advertisers, to our readers, to really get behind those conversations so that we can push those conversations and not be afraid of them.
Well, Mark, I'll tell you, the things you just mentioned they're issues, and there's no doubt. And I'll tell you this, I'm San Antonio's biggest cheerleader, but I'm also a realist. And this chamber has gotten behind, public ed, for example, and funding. So just kind of the bigger things right now. And now you're starting to hone in on, we got the money, so now let's figure out how we do it right. And so it's exciting. I'm looking forward to listening and watching and reading, and of course being a part of what you're doing there.
Yeah, it's exciting. You guys do a great job too, Richard. I think these chambers, and I want to just say this, I was part of the chamber in Houston. They are really important to our community, and we are here to support you in any way that we can. This is gonna be a prolonged event in our life. This isn't just gonna go away with a vaccine. I'm not rooting for that. I'm just trying to be realistic about what that is, and I think it's gonna take a concerted effort from everyone in this community, the Chamber, the Express News, all of our civic leaders, all of our business leaders, and all of the residents of San Antonio to pull together to really fight this and come out better.
Excellent. Well, so let's talk a little bit about focusing on the community giving back. You and I met when the Express News partnered with the Chamber and other San Antonio business organizations in the city when we pushed that We Heart SA Heroes, trying to focus a thank you on those frontline workers. Why is it important for you to focus on giving back to the community?
Because this is where we live. And I think that for whatever reason, newspapers withdrew from this notion of supporting the communities that we report in. Part of the newspaper's mission is to improve the lives of people inside of the community that they report the news on. But reporting is only one part of what we do. And when I got here and at the midst of the pandemic, another really critical element of this city is philanthropy and the nonprofits that need to survive in this city, that provide services to so many of those people that were in need prior to the pandemic. Just that need hasn't gone away. It's been accentuated by the pandemic and all of the social injustices. I feel I feel every day terribly for those parents that are having to make decisions about sharing bandwidth in their homes because their kids have to go to school virtually, but both of them have to maintain employment within inside of their house, and they have only so much bandwidth to share across the family. That is awful. We have members of our newspaper that are having to make decisions on what hours of the day that they can work to manage their own bandwidth.
Sure.
So that's not even an issue like childhood hunger. So as I think about one of the things that we have in our back pocket is we have space. We are a really, really good marketing vehicle. And am I biased? Yeah, I am, because I think we're really, really strong at what we do. We have space. And we have influential space. We have space on our websites. We have space inside of our print. And when I got here, sometimes the easiest things to do is to reach out to these nonprofits and help them, so that they can help the baseline people that they need to continue to help. So the way that we help is to write an email to our subscribers to say, hey, listen, these not-for-profits they're hurting, and they continue to need your dollars. I love the quote. Giving is about when you can't give, and $5 here, $25 there, $50 here. When you don't think that you can give it, think about the tens and thousands of San Antonians today that are relying on all of the service providers, the nonprofit service providers in the city who are struggling and have nothing. Part of being in a community is wrapping your arms around those people. And so for me, it's easy. It's an easy decision to partner with We Heart Our SA Heroes, or to partner with Eric Cooper at the Food Bank. We're going to do some really cool stuff with them as we head into the holiday season.
Good.
Yesterday, I wrote a op-ed column about a not-for-profit, Operations Comfort, that supports our military veterans in need. We just made a $25,000 donation. I'm actually heading out there today to give them their check.
Nice.
There's ways that we can come together as a community, and I want to try to lead. I want to try to help lead with that, and that means making the Express News more available to nonprofits to get their message out.
Good for you. Well, thanks for that focus. It's important. It makes a difference, and it's helping elevate those very needy opportunities, particularly in the not-for-profit area. So we're coming to the end of the interview. So I'd like to close with one last question, Mark. So everybody's looking at 2021. The pandemic still here. What's it going to look like? As you've said, I think, and you said, well, I think this is a prolonged issue. It's not ending with a vaccine. However, hopefully it'll help a lot. But this is long term. So tell me about what 2021 looks like for you and the Express News.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we are a for-profit business, and I say that to our newsroom all of the time. Journalism in our business doesn't happen unless we're profitable. So for us, we're going to continue to look for. We're going to expand the newsroom. We're making more investments in the newsroom, and we're doing that because of the response that we've had from readers. So our subscriptions are up, both in print and digital. That's really good for our business. So we're going to make that investment in the newsroom. On the advertising side, I am just so pleased with the reaction that we've received from so many small and medium businesses and large businesses in San Antonio. I have received hundreds of emails of thanks for the reporting, and that advertisers want to be involved in that. So as we think about the advertising arm of our business, we want to activate with our advertisers and draw them closer and pull them in. We have to be a great marketing vehicle for them. So as we think about our ad products and the ability to extend their brands to our audiences, because we grow our audiences, that's really important for us. So we're very focused on mysa.com next year. We're continued to be focused on our print business and our growing digital subscription business. And then we're focused on doing amazing street-level reporting and hard-hitting journalism in the investigative arm of our business. I think that will we continue to be challenged next year? Yeah, we will. But I think inside of that, there's the light at the end of the tunnel for our business is getting brighter, not darker. And we really want to push towards that light in a really positive and aggressive way.
Mark, well said. Thank you for your focus. Thanks for being in San Antonio. And thanks for your candidness in this interview. It's been fantastic. And I think people are going to take a lot from it, not just about who you are, what you do, why you do it, but the things that you're going to be doing in the future. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, Richard, I so appreciate you asking. So it's great to do this interview with you. I'm a huge supporter of the chamber. Let's keep it going. We need all of us.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, my friend. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Mark Medici. He is the publisher of the San Antonio Express News. He joined us today on our Influencer Series. Mark, again, thank you. We'll close by saying, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of challenges ahead, but we can take care of them together as a community. I firmly believe that. I truly believe that. And San Antonio will be better. Things will get better, and they are getting better. And we need to focus on that. So with that, I'll say thanks for watching. Stay safe. Keep an eye on your family, and we'll talk soon. With that, I say thank you very much.
Happy holidays, San Antonio.